Hi there, and welcome to the latest edition of the Gersnet Weekly Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast, which is brought to you by fans for fans, and where the content is absolutely free. It is episode 196 of the Gersnet Podcast. I'm your host tonight. I'm Colin Armstrong. As I say every week, guys, it's not just the pod that we have here at Gersnet. If you get yourself onto the website, you'll find the forums there, articles. There's a history archive on the website as well. And obviously, as I say every week as well, if you could give us a wee mention, promote us online, say to your friends who haven't listened to us yet, get the word out there on social media, tell everybody that we're here, and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well, please, if you can. Before I move on, to discuss yesterday's game, which is not something I'm overly looking forward to, I have to say. I have to mention our partners at Zenith Coins, who produce the official Rangers Club coin. Each gold-plated coin has a unique serial number engraved on the outer rim. It comes complete with a Rangers presentation box and certificate of authenticity. It's easy for me to say. A rake of famous Rangers supporters, including Alan McCoy, Derek Johnson, Marvin Andrews, Tom Stoltman and Gordon Ramsay all own one of these collections. Zenith has now also produced a 150th anniversary collection. There's a limited amount. There's only 1,872 of these available. They're released in small batches. They celebrate 5 iconic milestones in Rangers history, which is the founding fathers at Ibrox Stadium, the 1972 Winners' Cup win in Barcelona, 9 in a row, and the 55th league title. If you're looking for more information, get yourself onto www.zenithcoins.com and use discount code GN10. Right, on to yesterday's absolute in shambles. I've got two stalwarts of the pod to go through yesterday's game. I think it's fair to say that none of us were happy that we were going to be coming on the night to discuss this. Well, it is what it is, and we just need to get on it. So, John, I'll come to you first. How are you? How was your weekend? Was it as shit as mine?
I had a nice Friday night. I think I said to you I was, for reasons of daft superstition, I decided to spend yesterday on a Scottish mountain and coming back and watch the game after, and it poured with rain. There was close to hurricane winds at one point near the summit, and I still had a better time there than I would have had, I think, if I had watched the game live. But that's how it goes. How it goes. We've been here before.
We have. That's something we'll probably come on to discuss. I mean, my weekend started on Friday night. My son was playing on Friday night over in Kirkcaldy. And they got beat 10 for Camelon, for the development squad, yeah. So, and they got beat 10-0. So I kind of had a feeling then that it was going to be a bad weekend, and so it turned out. And went to the Camelon game yesterday after the Rangers game. They got beat 3-2. So yeah, every single team that I've went to watch this week.
Colin, do you ever get the feeling that you're a...
It's maybe me, yeah.
I was going to say,
the common denominator here. Yeah, it could be me. But to be honest, the following week, his team won and he scored. Rangers won, swings and roundabouts, I suppose. But yeah, I had a feeling driving back over the Queen's Ferry crossing, this could be a shit weekend, you know what I mean? And so it has turned out to be. Dougie, how shit was your weekend? Just mediocrely shit or really shit?
Really shit.
Really
I think
shit.
I'm one of the fans I think most listeners will probably resonate with, that when Rangers put in a performance like that, it just influences my mood. And when I look at the weekend, it's a shite weekend because, I can't even think about anything else that I did Friday to Sunday. I just think back to yesterday afternoon and that absolute shit show that we had to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it was bad, and we'll try and pick the bones out it. But it's definitely... it's been a bad weekend. I should give a shout out actually to all our, the extra viewers that we have tonight that we always get when they bastards turn us over. So hello to all the Tims that are joining us and get it right up, please. So let's get into yesterday's shambles, John. I'll come to you first. I mean, like a shocking result, really bad performance, and one you would have to say that, even so early on in the season, kind of leaves us looking in a sort of precarious position in terms of winning the league. You consider we're going to Pittodrie next week, which we'll discuss. And I think the next away game after that's Tynecastle, 2 or 3 weeks' time. So we're already at the stage where we can't afford to drop any more points. And it's now a year since we beat them in the league. You know, a lot of Rangers fans laughing at Steven Gerrard and his sort of troubles at the moment. Although I was chuffed to see him get a decent result yesterday and take the pressure off. But I mean, that invincibility that he built up when it came to Celtic, I mean, they couldn't touch us for about, the best part of 2 years in these games under Steven Gerrard. I mean, that's gone. That's completely gone. And for the same sort of game to happen twice, it was almost identical to that game in February. Unforgivable, really. Really, really poor.
Yeah, there's not a lot you can say to, you get turned over 4-0 by Celtic, then there's we can hunt around, we can dig deep to try and find redeeming moments, but there weren't many. And I know we will analyse it in a little more depth, and aspects of the game I felt we didn't carry a lot of luck in. But that aside, 4-0 is just a shocking result, and one that will haunt us for weeks and weeks. It'll be interesting to see how the club, in many ways, having the Ajax game coming straight up is maybe a blessing. It maybe forces us to try and bounce back quite quickly. A couple of hard games coming up, a couple of difficult games coming up. We'll have a look to see what this squad's actually made of. I don't have a great deal to say other than reiterate what you said to yourself. I think the biggest disappointment was that it's Groundhog Day, that we have seen this before in the not too distant past. Aspects of Celtic's play are fairly predictable, and for some reason we chose not to deal with that. Let's not pretend they don't have some good players. They do have some good players. They are the champions and they are a decent team. But I don't think there's a 4-goal difference between those two squads. But there was yesterday. Yesterday, one team looked up for it, looked fired up, looked like they knew what they were doing, and one team didn't. One team was quite ponderous and pedestrian. Even watching it back, and I watched it, as a glutton for punishment, I had to watch it because I knew I was coming on here. Instead of just giving a chance to completely miss it, I then had to watch it again. and you do watch a game differently when you know the score. It's not the same emotion involved.
Yeah, the emotion's gone.
You don't have the same fury at what's going on around you. You do take it in slightly differently, and so from that perspective, you do view it slightly differently. But nothing can change the fact that one team was hungrier, and there is never any excusing that. You can say certain players are limited. You can say certain players are better than other players. You can do that. You can't blame somebody for not being as fast as someone else, but you can look at them and say, you guys weren't hungry enough. You guys didn't come with the hunger that you have to go. Frustrated that Celtic have a style of play, and we'll probably look at it a little more depth. Celtic have a style of play. I really don't know why I think you have to bring Shithausen into this. I think that's how you have to deal with them, particularly in their own patch. I think you have to disrupt how they play. I think you have to get in faces. I think you have to disrupt the game, the flow of the game, because they want that game to flow quickly. That's part of their game, and you have to be able to stop. You have to stand in front of every free kick, three of you, so they can't take it. You have to turn into Atletico Madrid. You just have to be this horrible team that disrupts how they play, because if you let them play, they'll play through you because they're good at it. But only if you let them do it. Don't let them do it. Stop it. Stop it at source.
Yeah.
And I think we do have the players capable of doing that, but for some reason we chose not to. And I don't know if you're going to go through the individual goals, but certainly on, I think, the second goal, we turned our back. Kent and Lundstrom just turned their back to the ball. And that's unforgivable. I think you were being... I think you're probably going to give the goalie a hard time, which I think is a touch harsh, but we'll deal with that. But there can be no forgiving the lack of application, the lack of desire. That's there's no forgiving that. And we were beat by half time. That's poor as well. Again, exactly. Yeah. And oddly, I went into the game. You never go into these games particularly confident, but having the last two games of last season, when we drew at Parkhead and we won at Hampden, I went in thinking, right, we've figured them out. We've figured out how to play them. I was a little nervous we didn't have Bassey And ironically, Borna, who was probably my biggest concern in that game, was probably our best player.
He was,
on the day. I mean, it's not a high bar, but he was probably the best player on the day, which is slightly ironic. But I thought we had, and yesterday suggested we haven't.
Okay, I mean, the unforgivable aspect of this is as John alluded to there, it's Groundhog Day. This is almost identical to that game in February. 3-0 down at half time. The manner of the goals we conceded really poor. Now, sort of 10, 15, 20 minutes into that game in February, I was saying to my son, the minute the ball goes out for a throw in, their ball boys are throwing it quite back, quick turnaround, we're turning our back on the play. It's even the same when it goes out for a goal kick. Ball boy gives the ball to Joe Hart, and as we've got our back against play, Celtic already started their next attack. I got pissed off in that game in February that we weren't learning in game that's what they were doing. Right, we need to start switching on here, because within 10, 15 minutes it was obvious what they were doing. So to not learn in game was unforgivable. To then compound that by repeating that sort of those same offences yesterday, and then again not learning in game. I mean, after the first goal, you would think, right, okay, they've done us again. We've switched off at the throw in, and they've absolutely done us. Pretty much every goal has an element of us either switching off or handing it to them on a plate, and to not learn, that's what really fucking pisses me off about this. It was just the same. It was almost like watching the same game again from February.
Yeah, it was, Colin. I think the first thing I want to say to kind of start off the show is I think we need to recognise that Celtic are a good team. We got beat yesterday against a good team who look well drilled under a good manager who the turnaround under Ange for Celtic is phenomenal. What he's been able to achieve, the players he's been able to bring in and buy into his philosophy is admirable, first of all. But from our perspective, so many things were massively concerning. I think the most concerning thing for me was it was all just too predictable. The in-game play was predictable. As you said there, Gio touched on it in his post-match press conference as well, where he said that he told the players to look out for the quick set pieces. And that's probably the biggest thing that concerns me right now, is there's things that you expect from players before or during a big game like an Old Firm game. You expect the players to want to win. Celtic wanted to win more than us. They had a more desire to win the game than us, but you need your big players to stand up and be counted. Our big players did not stand up to be counted. You go through the team, too many players who are key to how we play football were really, really poor. But they clearly, as a team, didn't listen to the instructions from the manager. The first goal, for example, we've switched off. We've switched off from a throw-in. Same with the second goal. And actually in the second goal, John's touched on it already, where they've released the free kick early. I think we're very naive in both instances, the second goal in particular. Ryan Kent should be standing over the ball, but you can actually see the reaction from Gio when the quick free kick gets taken. He wants John Lundstrom to be closing down the man who gets the ball played to him. And I think that shows you there the most concerning thing is that the manager set out tactics and told the players what to expect and what to do, and they didn't execute his plan. And I think for me, that's the most frustrating thing, is the manager can put out a team, he can tell them what to do, but it's about how the players go and execute it. And I think that's where we failed. But I think going back to the team, I don't think the manager is blameless in all this. Don't get me wrong, I think the manager's starting 11 has been massively impacted by the loss of John Lawrence. I think Tom Lawrence. I think when Lawrence has been known to miss the game.
There. Maybe the loss of John Lawrence is the grounds of all this.
All this, yeah, there is a good point there, John.
I think when Lawrence wasn't available to us, we've had to play a different style of play. We've played Tillman out on the right. He's wasted on the right. We've then ended up playing 3 number 6s in the middle of the park. And the minute you see the team sheet, you think it's very conservative. It lacks imagination. It lacks creativity. And I think that's what we got. We got a team that was quite happy just passing the ball side to side with lack of intent. and it shows that we made the change at half time. But we're going to go on and talk about the team. We're going to go on and talk about the summer recruitment. For me, so many things concerning, but the biggest thing for me was that starting 11, and the team that finished the game was just massively concerning.
John, like the first goal, I think Ryan Kent does well initially. He's alive, he goes over and I can't remember who he nips it off. But then he kind of loses possession. I know we were talking on the WhatsApp earlier today, and you think it was a Rangers throw. I disagree. There was an angle from the other side, and it clearly comes off Kent last before it was out. But, regardless of what Kent thinks, whether it's his throw or Celtic's throw or whatever, he just doesn't react. You know what I mean? We don't react. We don't defend the cross. I know you're going to stick up for John McLaughlin. Again, we were having a wee blather on the WhatsApp earlier on, and you think some of the stuff being ended on was a bit harsh. But I think John McLaughlin gets a strong hand on that shot, and I think he should be keeping it out if he gets a strong hand on it.
Well, I have seen I've clearly seen different angles on it. I actually think you've been harsh on Kent. I thought the first goal, Kent walks away because he thinks he's got the throw in because it's a Rangers throw in, and the ref's got that wrong. I don't think you can blame Kent for not defending what he thought was our ball. So I think we've been a wee bit harsh there, and I think you've been harsh on McLaughlin because I think the ball was well hit from very close range. I think. An exceptional goalkeeper might have got it, but I think to blame McLaughlin for it is tough. Look, let's not even talk about the fourth goal. Clearly McLaughlin's fault, but I think the other three, the one that went through his legs maybe. But anyway, let's stick with the first goal. It is switching off, but I also think the referee got that wrong. I think it's our throw-in. I think Kent walks away assuming it's our throw-in. I've seen it. I thought it was our throw-in as well, but I don't know. I mean, it's the ball comes into the box too easily. Again, but I don't know. I think because of the way Kent's reacted to it, I think the Rangers team assume it's our ball. And they go for it, and we don't. And this goes back to what we spoke about a minute ago. It's the same issue. Is there not an issue though, John, with the similar goals to the goals in February? Balls coming in from that right-hand side and going to someone at the far post to score. I thought Borna had a good game, but I do think he let it was a badder that got the goal. I think he just lets him pull off. You know what I mean? We're just not from. I think from Kent to McLaughlin and everyone in between, we do not do our jobs. We do not defend the way we should be defending. We're not defending. You can't lose 4 goals, and if you lose 4-0, then there's no point in sticking up for the defence. I'm not sticking up for the defence. I think it's slightly harsh on John McLaughlin, but I think there's another 10 players that are just as culpable for that because you defend as a team, and we didn't. If the ball comes, if they get the cross in, then the cross has to be defended. It wasn't defended. Celtic an interesting thing where they pull ball out of position, and you see it actually more clearly on one of the other goals, and they deliberately pull him out of position. They pull him so he's no longer at the back post, and one of the guys goes around the back, and they've done it 2 or 3 times to us now, and I think it actually ends up with Sands who's trying to cover. Because Borna's been pulled to the front post because the player he's with goes to the front post. It's clearly deliberate. It works. You see Celtic do it time and time again with folk coming out the back post, and you're like, well, who's meant to be there? Well, the guy who's meant to be there has gone to the front post because his player's gone to the front post, and one of their central players goes to the back. And they did it in one of the other goals as well. They're good at it. If I can spot it, and I know nothing, if I can spot it, I'm a little surprised that our coaching team haven't. So I can only assume they have. And I'm a little surprised we haven't figured out how to deal with it because, they did that to us 2 or 3 times in the game. Not everyone thankfully resulted in a goal, but they did it to us 2 or 3 times. We did it for one of the goals. Borna, like you say, who had a good game. He has to go with his man. The guy makes a run at the front post. Borna has to go with him. We can't let him go, but it leaves a big gap at the back post, and Celtic are doing that deliberately.
Yeah. The second goal, Dougie, arguably the worst, I think. I mean, if you're taking McLaughlin's shit show out of proceedings, arguably the worst. Now, McLaughlin humps it forward, flag goes up for offside. Now, the first thing that Kent does is even at amateur football, even when I played amateur football, he never handed a player the ball when they had a free kick. You held on to it and walked back 5-10 yards to make sure that everyone's in position, and then you give them it. You know what I mean? So the first thing, he just sort of hands them it to. And then Kamara, Lundstram and Kent, again, don't react to O'Reilly being in space. Decent ball through, but again, I don't think we defend it well. And I'm sorry, I'm looking at McLaughlin again and thinking, what's he doing? There was one shot on Twitter today, and as he's coming out, I'm actually surprised, going by this image that I seen the day, that Jota went for the corner that he went, because McLaughlin had left a huge gap at his near post as he's coming running out. So yeah, just again, another defensive shit show.
It was, and sorry, John, I'm going to say I completely disagree with your assessment in the first goal, mate. And I think the second goal, I used the word naive earlier on. I think in both the first and second, there's just so much naivety. Slightly touched on the first one. I think the first mistake that Ryan Kent makes in the first one is he's tried to dribble the ball out of a tight situation. He's felt the contact and he's tried to keep going. See a sensible player in that scenario, you just go down and you take the free kick and you get the guys up the pitch. And I think similarly for the second one, it's Ryan Kent again and his naivety again, because for me, as you said, Colin, rule number one in amateur football is if you've got a free kick, the opposition get a free kick, your team's out of formation, you just stand in front of the ball. You allow your players to get back into shape, and Ryan Kent's let his teammates down. But I also think there's an element, there's three things for me. There's the naivety. I also think there's a pedestrianism from the team, where we're way off the pace, we're walking, we're slow. Same with the first goal, same with the second one. We're losing our man, we're letting them go, we're not tracking back. The second one's I touched on is the one where Gio's going absolutely mental at Lundstram because he's let his man go. It's then a straight ball through. Again, John, I'm going to disagree. I think the second one's probably the least of the four that you can blame the goalie, but I think in all four examples, the goalie should be doing better.
It's a cracking finish. Great finish.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
I mean, and I've heard folks say, McLaughlin went small. He didn't go small. But I mean, the guys, I don't know, he's 6, 7. No, not you, but today I've seen folks saying, Mclaughlin, he should make himself big. He made himself big. It's a cracking finish.
So let's not take anything away from the finish. I think Jota's finish is first class. I think it's a brilliant finish from a very good footballer, right? I think he'll go for a very high fee when he leaves Celtic, right? McLaughlin's came out and he stood with his arms by his side and he's bent down. See, you're talking about making yourself big. I think it was a PSV game we were talking about keepers like Andy Gorham. We certainly spoke about Andy Gorham at some point in one of the pods that I was on. Andy Gorham would have come out with his hands by his side, making himself massive so that Jota's got a mental block when he's one-on-one with the keeper. The reality is there, when the keeper's standing with his hands by his side, Jota's thinking, I'm just going to pop it into that corner. So for me, that's the one that's probably the least of the four that you can point the finger at the keeper. But I think, unfortunately, John McLaughlin showed that he was a number 2 keeper, and the pun is intended.
Oh, okay. Right, John, between the goals, especially the first and the second goal, Rangers had a real good spell of possession, and we knocked it about. As you were saying, Borna, I thought Borna was our best player yesterday. I thought him and Stephen Davis were probably the only two that kind of got pass marks. I mean, some of the crossings for Borna yesterday, and Cholak should definitely get an end of one of them. It was a great ball, but he had about, I would say, 5 or 6 really decent crosses in that first half. And I'm going to give you the stats. I looked at the stats today, and I'm not being funny, right? There'll be a lot of Celtic fans watching, thinking that this is a bit of Rangers fan. But see, if you were to look at the stats here and not know the score, you would never have thought it was a 4-0 game. We had 54.9% of possession. Celtic had 45.1%. They had 15 shots, we had 11. They had 6 on target, we had 2. They had 7 off target, we had 6. They had an 83% passing success rate. We had an 85% passing success rate. You know what I mean? Everything is relatively tit for tat. So when you look, honestly, when I looked at those stats today, I was like, that does not look like the game I watched yesterday. That I find that quite staggering. So it all comes down to those mistakes, really. You know, those key mistakes at key moments of the game. It's switching off, and also when we had those spells of possession, not doing anything with it.
Yeah, damned lies and statistics. For me, Colin should have scored one. At 1-0, he had a header where he'd got free. You know, he managed to get between the two centre halves. He got the ball. He just didn't make a good connection. And then he had one. He kind of snapped at it. To be fair, he could see what he was trying to do. He was trying to chip the keeper. I think they'd played out. It played out poorly. I can't actually remember what it came to, but you know, he was 30 yards out or something. It wasn't an easy chance. But on a different day, he scores those two, and it's a different game. But you know, if your auntie had boys and all that, you know, what does it matter? You know, he didn't take them, but he should have, because we did have spells. But you know, the telling statistic in that, aside from the number of goals scored, is the shots on target. For all that possession, for all that pass completion rate, we didn't hurt them. You know, we had that spell when it was 1-0, where, as I said, watching it back, I hadn't realised, but you know, we should have scored. You know, we definitely had one then, and they felt with the right player. They felt a guy in form, guy who's scoring goals just now. But you know, that aside, it didn't look like we were going to score yesterday. That's a concern. Dougie touched upon the fact that the team was defensively set up. The game passed Tillman by. I think you and I had touched upon this through the week when we were talking, Colin, that you know, Tillman clearly is there's a chance of an exceptional football player there. He's shown glimpses and had moments in games where he has, you know, been exceptional. And we were both wondering, just, you know, if he plays in the Celtic game, what will that be? And it just passed him by. It was too quick, It was too fast, it was too intense. He didn't look like, you know, he didn't look like he knew what was going on. Now, that won't be the case the next time, but it certainly was the case yesterday. And, you know, with hindsight, should they have played Wright instead? Possibly. I'm not Wright's biggest fan. But you're right, you know, we had the ball, we were unable to do what we needed to do with it. Unlike Celtic, who had a plan in the final third. I'm not sure what our plan was. Like you say, Bournemouth putting crosses in. We have a big defence. Their goalie's like 6'8" or something. Yeah. You know, and they have a big defence. You know, we've got one centre forward, decent centre forward, and a guy who, you know, is decent height, but you know, he's no Mark Gately. So I'm not entirely sure that is our best tactic just now. You know, you can't help but feel you're looking for midfield runners and folk breaking the lines, and we didn't have that yesterday.
The third goal, Dougie, again, just shambolic defender again. I think Tillman showed his sort of, as John highlighted there, you know, it was a bad day for him. You know, his attempt to chase back, I can't remember who it was that put on the cross, but his attempt to chase him back was pretty poor. Again, kind of similar to the first goal, coming from that sort of left-hand side there across to the back post. I mean, it was bad again. You know, he struck it fair enough, but it's straight at McLaughlin, right through his legs. You know, again, if I was taking my turn in goals at the fives and that happened to you, you're getting a bit of stick for it. You know what I mean? You're actually going to get accused of, or were you wanting it? You know, because you just let that go right through you. For a Rangers number one keeper to let that go through him, again, I think that was poor.
I think there's two things that went wrong with the third goal. I think it starts with the fact that Tillman was playing right wing. I don't think we should see Tillman play right wing ever again. There's been so many games in the past. I'm trying to think what the last one was. I thought that you see a player playing in a certain position, you just think, I don't ever want to see you playing in that position again. Tillman doesn't have the work rate or the pace to play right wing. And for that goal, I think he stood off. I think it was Hatate who had the ball. He played it through to Taylor, who was passing by. Tillman needs to be closer to Hatate. He needs to be putting in the challenge, putting him under pressure. He has not. he's very lackadaisical. That's error number one. Error number two is nobody's tracking Greg Taylor as he's overtaking him. I think it was either Taylor or Juranovic. I think it was Taylor. Taylor's ran past him. I think Arfield's the closest to him. Nobody's tracking him. He's got an easy ball into the box. Error number two. Error number three is there's no commanding defenders in that box. For me, it's our Achilles heel. That ball across the box, it happened in Seville. You just want to see a defender get their foot right through that and get rid of it. And unfortunately, when we get balls into the box, it's too easy sometimes to just score against us with a ball getting into the box. That's error number three. Error number four for me is Bonner's miles away from Abada. He should be so much closer to Abada. Abada's made a good run, but Bonner's way too often that allows Abada the time to pick his spot. Error number four. Error number five is he's picked his spot right at the keeper and it's gone through the keeper's legs. There's 5 errors, and I think going back to John's point earlier on is you can't just point the finger at the goalie on the fourth goal. It's a catalogue. Everybody's contributed in that goal there. There's 5 things that's gone wrong in that goal there. Everyone's easily pointing the finger at the keeper because he should be doing better. But I tell you what, Tillman should be doing better. Somebody should be tracking the run. The defender should be clearing it before it's in the box, and it's in the box. And Bonner should be closer to Abada. It's just a very, very poor goal to concede. And actually, one of the things I meant to touch on earlier on about the first goal and didn't get a chance to was, see when Celtic scored the first goal, I knew that was us. I knew it was going to be a pumping. I knew it was going to be a heavy defeat, because I think one of the biggest things for me that's really wrong just now is the mentality. I just think when that first goal went in, the heads went down. I think the players thought, that's us, we're getting beat. And I'm not sure that would happen. It's easy to compare Gio and Gerrard. I don't think we'd get pumped. We didn't get pumped at Celtic Park off Celtic. We didn't get pumped off anyone against Gerrard. I just don't think that would happen under Gerrard. I think the players under Gerrard, I think they had an arrogance, they had a swagger getting into certain games, and they despised Celtic. And I think when you go into Old Firm games, you need to hate them. You need to have belief in yourself. And I think going straight back to the very first goal, I think we didn't have belief in ourselves. I think we looked a defeated team, and by the time the third goal went in, it was just a matter of how many is it going to be. And actually, as John said earlier on, the only success is it was only 4.
See on that third goal, just sorry. Is that Celtic a funny thing? If you watch it back, if you can be masochistic enough.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. Thanks for the offer, John.
It's an interesting thing because I've seen them do it before. 2 of the players stand offside. Right? So actually, if you look at it, our defence is actually lined up okay. You know, we're lined up, we're in a line, you know, we're expecting a ball in, and 2 of their players stand offside, and not just a step offside, well offside. Well offside. And it's clearly something they work on, because it's an unusual tactic. But 2 of their guys go offside. The defence is then looking at them. So our defenders are not near these players, okay, because they're offside. So we either go right into the 6-yard box with them, or we leave them there. And that's actually part, as I said, it must be tactical. It must be something they choose to do. But they've got 2 players offside. They then take the shot, the throw in. I can't remember if it was a throw in or a free kick they had. But they then take that, and then of course, as the ball goes down for the boy to put in the cross, they come back on onside. Okay, they then come into play, right? The boy Bonner's marking, he goes to the front post, so Bonner goes with him. So I don't think Dougie's got that quite right. It wasn't Bonner that was meant to be on Abada. It was actually Sands. Bonner's gone to the front post with the Greek guy whose name I can't say. They've gone with him, and he's gone with him, which he has to do. He has to go with his runner. But it's an interesting tactic they've got. They've got these guys offside, and defenders don't know what to do. And it's an odd thing because this is relatively new. You know, in the past, those guys would just have been offside. As soon as the play started like that, they would have been offside. As soon as that first ball follows played, they're offside. Now they're not. Now it's classed as the next phase. They're not offside until later on. And it's, tactically, you have to say they got that right. We didn't know how to deal with that. And it means the players end up with all this space, and our defenders are not close. We're not able to do what defenders do sometimes, hold on to somebody, barge them, knock them, just, do defending stuff. It's a clever tactic and something we're going to have to figure out how to deal with, because I've seen them now do it a few times in this league.
The fourth goal, John, right, we've gave McLaughlin a hammering already, so, we know what he done. He's basically just handed it on a plate, and, it's really poor, but it's not even just poor for on the day. I mean, I don't know how you feel, but I mean, I don't think McGregor's the answer. I think we saw last season that McGregor's days his best days are behind him. The debate through the summer when McGregor signed his new contract was, well, who's going to be number one, or who should be number one? Should it be McGregor? Should it be McLaughlin? Are we actually at the stage now when it's like, no, it shouldn't have been either of them. We should have been in the market for a keeper in the summer there. I now feel, and something, I felt this, as the teams were lining up in the tunnel, and I saw Joe Hart and McLaughlin standing next to one another. I was kind of like, I wasn't thinking at that point, we're going to get pumped today. I was thinking more long term. I was like, that could be a problem. They've got, all right, Joe Hart isn't the goalkeeper he was. He was more famous for advertising Head and Shoulders at one point than he was for being a goalkeeper, but he's more than equipped to play at, SPFL level, and he's a better goalkeeper than McLaughlin. So that straight away, I was like, I think that could be a problem this season. They've got a better keeper, someone who is going to make, decent saves. I thought McLaughlin, when he came in at the start of the season, when we won 55, he started the season. I thought he performed very well and convinced me at that time that I thought he could be an option to be number one moving forward. But I don't know if it's because he now knows he's number one, if the mindset has changed, the pressure's getting to him. But I've been unconvinced with him for most of this season, John, and I think we should be in the market for a new keeper.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing. I think all of us, or most of us, watched McGregor last season and realised, that's probably was his last season. I still think McGregor's a better shot stopper than McLaughlin. I just think he is as instinctively a better shot stopper, but he can't command his box, whereas McLaughlin can. And we have seen that this season where McLaughlin has come and taken high balls, relieved some pressure, whether he's punched it or caught it. He is good at that, but he isn't as good a shot stopper. And all four of those goals yesterday, three of them were well hit shots from fairly close range, and one was just a gift, an absolute gift. I'm willing to give him some defence for the first three goals. There's nothing you can say about the fourth. The fourth is just an absolute horror show. And the only thing that's going to go in his favour is the fact it was the fourth goal and it wasn't a 1-0 defeat, in which case he would be absolutely getting hounded just now. I think John McGregor was our number two for a reason. He's not as good a goalkeeper as we've had even in the recent past. He's certainly not Andy Gorham. He's not Chris Woods. He's not Stefan Klos. And he's not Alan McGregor in his prime. Can he grow into this jersey? We'll see. He's with us, and he's there till January unless McCrory gets the nod, or we bring McGregor back. And I don't think bringing McGregor back is the answer. No. So, and I don't know if McCrory's ready for it or not. He might, he might get a shot, another performance like that, and he might get a shot. We'll see. It would be quite a big challenge for a young man to come in and do that, but we'll have to see. Should we have replaced him in the summer? Again, hindsight's great. I think most people felt McGregor was finished and McLaughlin would get a chance. I think a lot of people felt McLaughlin had probably earned that chance. I thought he did well against PSV, as did everybody else in the team. To be fair, I thought we all did well against PSV. I think he did well against PSV. He was poor yesterday. He was suspect for that fourth goal, which was just horrendous. I don't even know who he was trying to pass it to, because Goldson was still there. No, Goldson was there for the square pass. I've not even, under the circumstances, I have no idea why he was trying to make that pass. The game was gone. So,
I think he wanted it, John. That's the only option I can think of.
Why he dropped? What do you think?
No, you want to do it. That's what you do at the fives, isn't it? When you're I'm done. Maybe you just pass it to somebody and let them score. And he's right.
He's waited a long time. He's waited a long time to get this chance. He's been patient. He's waited a while to get this chance. He's got the chance. I think Rangers have got a great history of improving goalkeepers. I remember when Andy Gorham first came. He did not look like the guy to replace Chris Woods, and of course he went on to become one of the greatest goalkeepers in our history. If for some, arguably the greatest. So I think he can improve. Concentration can improve. He's never going to be Alan McGregor as a shot stopper. I don't think. I just don't think he has that in his arsenal. But whether his concentration can improve, whether his distribution can improve, whether he can grow into the jersey, we'll find out in the next couple of weeks. Certainly, will tell us something. We don't have any choice. As I said, it's him or McGregor or McCrory. So I suspect he'll hold the jersey for the Ajax game. And let's see what he does. It's a lonely position when you make a mistake. You two are not the only ones pointing the finger of blame at McLaughlin for this. I appreciate that I'm one of a small band of people who's given him the benefit of the doubt for 3 of the goals. Fourth goal was horrible. Should we have brought a new goalkeeper in? I don't think the management team looked at the budget they had and decided it's best spent on bringing in a new goalkeeper. I think they thought we've got cover. That might prove to be a mistake as the season goes on. But for now, there's no point in crying over spilt milk. All we need to do is figure out how we improve it. How do we move forward from this?
Dougie, on to Gio, because obviously it's quite a damaging result for him as well, because as I said, it's the second humping he's had over at the Piggery, and we as I said earlier on, we went like 2 years or something without being defeated by Celtic in the league, and Gerrard had built up a sort of invincibility against them, and that's been completely corroded. I think we look like kind of rabbits in the headlights at times when we play Celtic, and his after-match comments were a concern to me. So because as we said earlier on through the game, we're seeing Rangers not picking up, but Celtic are turning the ball over really quickly. The ball boys are obviously included in this. They've all got a ball. The minute the ball goes out, they're giving it back, keeping the thing going. And we're not adapting to it, we're not reacting to it, we look like we're not expecting it. So to hear Gio actually say in his post-match comments that they prepared for this, that this was part of the preparation through the week for the game, I think that's a worry, because it says to me that there could be a disconnect between the players and Gio, because if the coaching staff are telling them this is what's going to happen and we're going to prepare for this, and then you do the exact opposite, then that worries me. Because I mean, as you pointed out earlier on, everyone at Celtic is buying into Postecoglou. He's got an ethos and a way he wants to play, and he's got buy-in from the boardroom stands. Everyone is behind what he's doing. Players are behind it. So whatever message he's giving the players, they're buying into it, and they're delivering that on the park. I can't say that's happening with Gio. If Gio's saying to me, or not just saying to me, sorry, if Gio's saying in his post-match comments that they prepared all week for what Celtic were about to do, and then what happens, there's surely a problem there.
I've already said it, Colin. I think what Gio's good at is Gio's a tactical manager. I was on after PSV and I spoke very highly of Gio. I think what he's very good at is reading the opposition and predicting certain things and setting the team up to counter and all that good stuff. Ange, on the other hand, is a plan A. He's a plan A manager. He sets his team out to play a certain way. They go and play a certain way. And in most games in Scottish football, they steamroll teams. I think it'll be in Europe. It's a big test for Celtic. I think the biggest concern that I have about the disconnect is that Gio has given those players tactics and they've not executed them. That for me is the biggest concern. He's told them around the fast set pieces, they've not followed it. These players have followed the tactics before. They've followed it in Europe They followed it in our success getting to the Scottish Cup final, including beating Celtic, which proves that we can do it. They did it by being in their faces, as John touched on earlier. They were in their faces, they were aggressive. I think that proves that there is no disconnect between the players and the manager. I think, and it's just my personal opinion, it all comes down to mentality. I think the players just froze at Celtic Park yet again. And I know we're going to talk about our records. I think we've mentioned the record. I think there's a wider issue than just Celtic Park. I think there's an issue around our away form in general. I've seen some stats earlier on around our away form. So we've had 13 away league games in the 2022 calendar year. 6 wins, 5 draws and 2 defeats. 2 of them are against Celtic. It's a 46% win rate. We've scored 22 and we've had 19 against. There's your problems. There's a mentality problem going to Celtic Park that we've had 2 defeats. But something is not working going away from home. I don't know what it is. It could be mentality. We're going to come on and talk about the players and the transfers available to us. I think he gets tactics massively wrong, but I think his tactics were very limited by the players at his disposal. So I think there's 2 massive things for me. There's the player recruitment, and I think there's the mentality. I think both of them have contributed. I don't think there's a disconnect between the manager and the players. And I think when you're watching the players singing Sweet Caroline over in Eindhoven, I think that proves that there was a togetherness amongst the squad, and particularly between Gio and the likes of his captain, James Tavernier.
Colin, you're muted, mate.
Apologies.
To be fair, that's the best you've sounded all programme so far for me.
Best I've sounded since I started this shit, John, to be fair. It's probably the best thing I said and no one heard it. There you are, that's it, and it's gone forever. If there is no disconnect, John, between the players and Gio, which I'm not entirely convinced of, I think there is an issue, then why are we struggling away from home domestically? So looking at the numbers here, 10 away fixtures in 2022, and he's won 4. Now that's not championship winning form away from home. If you're going to be winning league titles, you have to be doing more than that. And it's the thing that's really puzzling is, in Europe, we're the total opposite. We're overachieving in Europe. The bread and butter stuff.
That's the thing. We're not particularly. I mean, other than the PSV game, we're not actually all that good away from home in Europe either. Our Ibrox has become an absolute fortress under Van Bronckhorst, but actually away from home, it's not actually been all that good in Europe either. Results away from home have been mixed, shall we say? The PSV,
Dortmund,
yeah, and Dortmund was one of these incredible nights. But if you actually look at it, away from home in Europe, it's been at home that we've been dominant. It's been at home we've been really good. I'm agreeing with what you're saying. Our away form isn't good enough. I read a thing recently about Van Bronckhorst that there was the same issue at Feyenoord. Feyenoord's away form under him wasn't good. The one season that they had good away form was the season they won the league. And the other 2 seasons he was in charge, their away form was very poor. Their home form was magnificent. Going to their ground was a real challenge for every team in that league, but their away form was poor. And is that his Achilles heel? I don't know, maybe. But he's going to have to figure out how to solve that very quickly, because you can't get away with that in Scotland. You need to be winning away games. That's where the league is won. The league will be won at Tynecastle and Pittodrie and, frankly, at Ross County and at Livingston, because these are where we dropped the points. These are where we picked up draws last season that we needed to turn into wins. And if we do it again this season, we'll come second. So he does need to fix it. I agree with Dougie. I don't think there is a disconnect with the players. Are there some players who've bought into what he does more than others? Of course there is. You get any group of men together like that, there are going to be ones who buy into it, and you'll be ones who maybe don't buy into it quite as much. And I guarantee that's the case in every changing room in every club in the country. But I think overall, the players have bought into what he's doing. We've had some exceptional results under him, and we've had some bad ones. And unfortunately, the really bad ones have come against Celtic. And yesterday was one of them. why that's happening. Why are the players not listening to his tactics? I don't know. Why are they not taking on board his instructions? Which, frankly, the thing about switching on at set pieces, I don't really feel that is something that needs to be told to you before a match. I mean, professional football players, they watch sports scene, they'll figure out that's how Celtic play. That there is a speed and a dynamism to how they play. You yourself saying about even the ball boys throwing the ball in. It's everybody knows that's how they play. The players shouldn't need to be reminded about that. The fact they were reminded about it and somehow forgot is frustrating, worrying to an extent, but perhaps something at least that can be fixed. At least if we can look at that and say, well, that shouldn't be the hardest thing in the world for folk to remember. But I do think our away form is of concern, and I do think that's something that seems to have followed Van Bronckhorst in his career. And eventually, I think it cost him his job at Feyenoord. And it will cost him his job at Rangers if he doesn't figure out how to fix that. And I think that would be a great pity, because I think he's got a great deal he's brought a great deal to the club. But he needs to solve that, and he needs to sort it soon.
I wouldn't be encouraging any of our players to watch sports, but that's another issue, John. Before we continue, I need to mention one of our other partners at Football Prizes. They're currently offering you the chance to win a Stephen Davis signed Rangers shirt presented in a bespoke frame and custom backdrop and LED lights and a built-in TV. Seriously, a built-in TV. Entry is £3.95. There's maximum of 199 tickets available. The deadline is this Wednesday, and it will be shown live on the Football Prizes Facebook page at 12 o'clock on Wednesday. So if you want a chance to win that, get yourself onto www.footballprizes.co.uk. Right, Dougie, the disconnect that we're talking about, or the no disconnect, as John said there, some players have buy-in, some players don't, that kind of thing. I think two that I think, if that is the case, that aren't buying into this, one is Ryan Kent. I think his influence on Rangers has went down considerably since Steven Gerrard left the club. And Ryan Jack, I found it quite interesting that Ryan Jack started the game against Queen of the South, because that told you almost straight away that he wasn't starting on Saturday. And there was a time under Steven Gerrard that he would have been probably the first guy in the team, the team sheet on a Saturday against Celtic. So his influence and his stature has went down as well since Gio's come in. Is that a concern for you? It is for me, and to me, it could point to wider issues.
You're going to hate me again, Ray, because I'm going to say there's no disconnect between the players. I'm going to put it down to fitness for Ryan Jack in particular. Ryan Jack's a brilliant player. I spoke about it at the beginning of the season on, I think, the very first podcast, that I think we're a much better team when Ryan Jack's in it. The problem with Ryan Jack just now is I think he looks overweight. I genuinely do, and I don't think that's down to a disconnect with the manager. I think that's down to a recurring knee problem that restricts him being able to train harder to get himself into a level of fitness. I think Ryan Jack's playing days are going to be numbered long term because of his injury, and he's one of around 7 or 8 players who are out of contract in the summer. If he's going to get a new contract, he needs to get himself fitter and start contributing to the first team. That's me on Ryan Jack, I'm afraid to say, and I love him, but I think fitness is his big issue. Ryan Kent's had his fitness problems as well. I don't think it's fitness for Ryan Kent. No, I think if you look at the Celtic game in particular, I think the problem with Ryan Kent in that game was the formation. I think it was the tactics. I think we had 3 very deep line midfielders and 3 players further up the pitch, and I think there was just too big a gap between midfield and up front. And therefore, what we were asking Ryan Kent to do was to come back very deep, pick up the possession, and then try and carry it up himself because there was nobody else in front of him. And I think he was being put in a position where he was never going to win. You look at the first goal, he's trying to beat 3 players because he had nobody in front of him. Well, he actually did, but on that occasion he did. But I think for me, Ryan Kent, the problem is around he needs other players around him that can help him. He's better when we're on the front foot, and there's been so many games since Gio's came in that Ryan Kent has been key. And I point at Europe, and I think the European games show that there's no disconnect between the players and the manager. I think it comes down to mentality again. And I just keep on reflecting on a comment that I seen on Twitter yesterday, and it was if we became a European side. And what's in my head just now is objectives for the year. What is it the players want to get out of the season? In the 2020-21 campaign, I don't know if you've seen any of Jermaine Defoe interviews recently, but Defoe said when the players went into pre-season that summer, they were just focused on one thing, and that was winning the league. All they wanted that season was to just win the league. And he said that he's seen a steeliness in that pre-season where the players were all just determined to go and win the league. And I think if you spoke to any Rangers fan that season, every Rangers fan would have told any Rangers player, if they seen them, go and win the league. I think 55 was just the priority in that season. You fast forward a season and looking at last season, I think we, as a support, started thinking about Europa League final very quickly in the season. And I think the players might have as well. And therefore, they've taken their eye off the domestic game to focus on the big nights at Ibrox under the spotlights, getting to the big occasion. And I hate to say it, I think that's the problem this season as well. I think too many players have been focused on, we want to go one better than last year. We want the Champions League group stages. And I think it's very difficult to be a team that's successful domestically and in Europe. And for me, I think we've got our priorities wrong. I think, we keep seeing about reminders. This should be a rocket up the players' arses. It should be a kick up the arse for Gio. But I think a lot of the reminding that needs to be done right now, and I said it after PSV, we needed to get into the Champions League group stages financially. But for me, the league is our bread and butter. And I think it's important that the players, we're in September. There's a long season to go. We've only dropped 5 points, right? There's a long way to go. The league is not over. The league's not won or lost in September. So I think the league is not over, despite some people on social media saying that it is. I think the point here is we need to refocus on what our objectives are for the year. We're in the group stages. We've got the money. We've got the glamour games. I think the manager needs to be telling the players the league is the priority this year. Get your head back in the league. Win the league. If you win the league, you're in the group stages of the Champions League again next season. And you've got the finances to strengthen the team again at that point. I just think we need to reprioritise our objectives.
John, on making the Champions League group stages, after the home leg against PSV, I think we all felt it was going to be a big ask. Not impossible, especially considering some of the results this group have achieved in Europe. But I think most of us were thinking it was a big ask. But we've done it. A great night over in Eindhoven. I think most of us felt at that point there's bound to be additions to the squad. They've had the sales of Bassey, Aribo, Patterson. They got 1.5 million through the bank there for Gilmore moving. They then get the Champions League cash. So I think most of us felt there would have been some movement on transfer deadline day, maybe one or two coming in. Has the decision not to do that, is that now looking like it could cost us?
It's difficult to justify or defend not buying players when you just lose 4-0 to Celtic. There's a couple of things worth bearing in mind. I mean, the club, for whatever criticism, and I've heard a lot of criticism over the last 24 hours laid at, everybody's been criticised from the board through to Ross Wilson, through to the manager, through to the backroom staff not getting folk fit, through to the players, right? Because that's what we do. It's an knee-jerk to a terrible result, okay? But if you actually look at the transfers, we didn't start looking at this. This game, we started looking at this transfer window, probably this time last year, but certainly back at the beginning of this year. So we knew coming into this transfer window what we had in mind. And if you actually look at it, was realistically 6 players have left the club. Itten, who was replaced by Kolic, and I think that's an improvement. Balogun, who has been replaced by Davies and Suter. And we don't know if that's an improvement or not, because neither of them has been fit for long enough for us to tell. Aribo, who has probably been replaced by Lawrence, with Tillman coming in as another kind of interesting player in a similar position. Bassey, who we haven't replaced, who I don't know if we can replace him. The lad Ridvan's come in, he's a fullback. Bassey had this amazing ability to be as good at fullback as he was at centre half. And I don't think, looking at the young Turkish boy, I don't think he's ever going to play centre half for us. But he may turn out to be a tremendous left back. And then Katic and Zakowski. Katic, who got the injury and really never played again for us. And Zakowski, who was really with us for 6 months, and we all kind of scratched their head a little bit, and he's gone away now because I think they think Devine is a more than ample number two to our captain. So they're the 6 that have gone, and we've brought in players and we've promoted players from within. Would it have been nice to have seen us bring in somebody who is someone who walks straight into that first team? Yes, it would. I think every single football supporter in the land likes to see their team bring in a player who instantly strengthens your first 11. One of the big criticisms I've heard over the last day is that none of the new signings, none of the summer signings finished the game yesterday.
Yeah.
And that's fair enough. That's fair enough. None of them did. As we've gone through there, I think if Davies is fit, he plays instead of Sands, and I think if Suter's fit, he plays instead of Sands. The fact that all 3 of them are injured, you can point the finger at certainly Suter. Everybody knew Suter was injury prone before he came. I don't know a great deal about Davies. I don't know what his career was like before he came to us, and whether he's another player that's injury prone. Helander was certainly injury prone. So we need to stop buying centre halves who are prone to injury. You look, the releasing Balogun looks like a mistake every time, every game that goes on. And I actually quite like Sands. I think Sands has done quite well, but I think it's still I prefer Balogun playing yesterday. But that is what it is. This financial fair play thing has reared its head in the last kind of 48 hours. Clearly the club knew about it, and that the club were being investigated and had been put on, I think the term is special measures, where we have to supply additional information to UEFA. And we're not the only club, there's quite a few clubs, and there were some clubs, from what I can read of it, and I may have got this wrong, and if I have, I do apologise, but from what my reading of it is, it was basically only COVID that stopped us being fined. That COVID, because of what happened with COVID, clubs were allowed to breach financial fair play because of the loss of income that COVID created. And because of that, the club didn't get fined, but have been put on a kind of list, along with a whole host of other clubs. But there were some clubs who did get fined. And let's be frank, Rangers can't afford to get fined. We've had a good season this season, but the ones previous to this have not been good. We have lost a significant amount of money as a club, and we can't keep going losing money, and we cannot expect the directors to keep putting their hands in their pockets. These guys are not billionaires. They are wealthy men, they are wealthy businessmen, they've done well. They're not billionaires. They're not, we're not owned by a country. We're not some sultan's plaything. The guys who own the club are Rangers supporters, and they've done well in their lives, and they have some money, and they've been good enough to put it into the club, to keep the club going forward and rebuild it. At some point that has to stop, because at some point they're going to want their money back. And if nothing else, they get to a point where they can no longer put money in. So I do think that the model for the club is one that we are all going to have to get used to. I think you will see players like Lowry, if he gets fit again, or when he gets fit again, McCann, Devine, I think players like that, King, I think you'll see more of them this season. I think the whole point of having this the B team in the Lowland League, and the money that we spend on the academy is so that we use these players. And I think we'll see more of that and less of the big signing who comes in. And as a support, we have got very used to the big signing coming in. That's just something that has happened at Rangers for a long, long time. Arguably since you and I started going to watch Rangers, certainly since Souness came in, we have got used to, we have a problem in our team, we go and buy someone to fill that hole. Okay. And I think, and realistically, I don't think that's what's the model for Rangers now. The model for Rangers now is to break even. We'll have to either qualify for the Champions League or we'll have to sell somebody for quite a lot of money. And that's the model. Because there is not the income in Scottish football just now for us to have a team the size of Rangers and the expense it cost to run a club like Rangers. So am I disappointed that we didn't bring in somebody? Yes, I'm a little bit. I think it's always nice to get a new face coming in. I think a new face coming in, particularly if it's a player who instantly challenges for a first team jersey, keeps everybody on their toes, brings something to the squad, is exciting for supporters. Am I surprised we didn't? No, not particularly, because I just don't think that's where we are just now as a club. The money, there must be some money available. There must be. I think if we had somebody in mind, I think the money was there to bring them in. Whether somebody didn't want to come, whether whether the backroom team and Ross Wilson felt that we've got enough just now. I don't know. I don't have that kind of insight. But I do think it is something we will have to get used to. And I don't think it's something we're going to like, because I think we have been used to being a club who goes in and buys finished articles rather than bringing in guys like Tillman and frankly Bassey and build them up and then sell them, because I think that is now what we're having to do. And because of that, our squad is not as strong as perhaps it's could have been in the past.
Dougie, one final point. We've slightly overran, so I'll give you one sort of last comment on Champions League on Tuesday. So obviously Wednesday night. Sorry, but first time in the Champions League in 12 years. Ajax away from home. They won today or yesterday. Sorry, over the weekend, 4-0. Wanted to talk about the pricing structure for the 3-match package, because a lot of anger online for some supporters. I was £270, I think it was, for my 2 tickets for me and my son, which, my son's season ticket is £150, and they wanted 96 for the 3-match package, which is pretty much 2/3 of the full cost of his season ticket. I'm getting a bit pissed off with the monetisation of the Rangers support, I have to admit. And this was another thing that just added to that. I was just thoroughly scunnered with it, to be honest with you. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's a disconnect just now between the board and the supporters. I think, as you said, I think we're being used as a cash cow at the moment, and that's certainly how it feels. It's the max that UEFA allow any club in Europe to charge supporters. That's the level of what we are being charged just now from the club to go and watch our team. I get that it's a big competition, it's a Champions League, we could benefit from the finances. It comes down to whether the fans will pay it or not. And I think you compare our pricing structure to across the city. We're, 180 is the max for us, yeah, £60 a ticket. Celtics is 129. The difference is we'll pay the 180. No problem at all, and therefore the club know that they can charge that. I think one of the things that pisses a lot of fans off just now with it is twofold. One, Celtic are offering a monthly payment package, which we are not during a cost of living crisis. And sorry, John, I disagree again. I think supporters would understand paying £180 for 3 games if that money was reinvested. I think Champions League money on ticket sales alone comes out around £7.5 million. I think when you consider the Europa League money that we earned, compensation from Gerrard, the Patterson sale, the Bassey, the Aribo sales, I understand that we're a club that's going to have to manage our finances with FFP looking after us and all that good stuff. But I think, going back to the Champions League prices, I think the disconnect comes right now that us fans have been asked to pay that money and we're not seeing it being reinvested in the team right now. Colin, I've got loads of material here on the squad. I'm going to finish on one question, right? It was something that one of my mate Andy had said earlier on, right? And I'm going to ask you both and see if you know the answer to this. Do you know who the last player was that we spent, the last central midfielder that we spent over £1 million on to sign?
No.
As long as it wasn't Ian Black.
Aye. You're not going to say Barry Ferguson, are you?
It was Carlos Peña. That's how far back it was. That's how little investment has been put in our midfield. And for me, I think we keep looking at the squad every season and there's glaring weaknesses. Central midfield, number 8, box-to-box player to sit beside Lundstrom and a right winger. I think we failed to sign a proper central midfielder. That meant that we had to play a 37-year-old at Celtic Park. And we failed to sign a proper right winger. That meant that the right winger that we actually bought is better than a left, didn't even make the bench. We went with Tillman on the right rather than Scott Wright, who's on the bench. So there's major criticisms for me. There's the criticism of the board around providing the finances. There's criticism of Ross Wilson around how he's spending the money. And I have major criticism of Gio as well. My criticism of Gio, and it's my last parting point around this, is he a yes man? Is he the yes man for the board who doesn't challenge the board? Would Gerrard allowed us to have not spent a penny of the Champions League money before transfer deadline day? I don't think so. I think Gerrard would have been banging that door down to strengthen the team. And I personally am very, very disappointed at our lack of transfer activity.
There you go. And on that note, we'll wrap things up. Before we go, I need to give a mention to our final partners, Forest Precision Engineering. They're a subcontract Glasgow-based engineering company, big commercial supporter of the club. You can get them on their website at www.forestprecisioneng.com. They also have an executive lounge at Ibrox if you want information about that and how you can visit that. Email the club at hospitality@rangers.co.uk. So a big thanks to John and Dougie for having to endure the last hour and 15 minutes. As I say, we've kind of overran a wee bit, but obviously a lot to talk about. And there's lots of Tims watching, so we want to keep them up as late as possible as well. So, that's how it goes. Myself and Eck will be doing a preview show on Tuesday night for the Ajax game. I've returned to the Champions League for the first time in 12 years. The show was live tonight. It's a Sunday night, we were live, but the show will be available to download or stream on a variety of platforms from tomorrow, including Acast, iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, Stitcher and Spotify. Guys, horrible weekend. It feels like we've came full circle again. We're getting pumped off them again fairly regularly. But hopefully things will turn round and we'll get back on board. I'll see you on Tuesday night. So until then, bye for now.